Critical Issue, we interviewed Dr. Jeannie Zaino, Interim Dean and Political Science Professor here at Iona College, on her long history at the school and what her views on the issues of college costs and the rising amount of students in debt due to college loans. Plus, we'll ask her about the political race. Also, voter suppression in America. We look at the recent attempts to stop voting fraud, but at the same time, preventing those without photo identification to vote in elections. A hot-button issue we'll discuss. Then the U.S. economy still seems like it's at a standstill with no major change with unemployment or the ever-growing debt. Then in the race for 2012, it's back. We'll take a look at what the biggest monuments from both the Republican and Democratic conventions and what both candidates need to do from this point on. A brand new season of Critical Issue starts right now. Welcome to the season premiere of Season 3. It's a brand new season here on Critical Issue. I'm Richard Giacovas, your host and moderator for this year. We are less than 2 months away until Election Day, so we'll have tons of stuff to cover in our race for 2012. And there will be some folks helping us out with that. Let me introduce you to our panel, starting off with CJ Finaro, who is a political contributor and sophomore class senator. CJ, welcome back.
Rich, thanks for having me.
Kenny Reichman, ICTV News chief political correspondent and anchor for This Week at Iona. Kenny, welcome back to you.
Thank you.
And we are welcoming newest member of our panel, Brian Sears, who is a news director for North Avenue Nation and a contributor for The Ionian. Welcome, Brian.
Pleasure's mine.
Okay. Thank you, guys. We're going to get to them in just a moment, but first I want to introduce you to a new segment. It's called Talking Points. In this segment, we're going to be interviewing experts in various fields about a wide range of topics. Our first guest on this new series is Dr. Jeannie Zaino. I sat down with Dr. Zaino just a couple of days ago to talk about what's going on here on campus, college costs, student debt, what she feels can be improved. She's also a political science professor, so we'll look at that as well. And, of course, the race for 2012. Take a look. Dr. Jeannie Zaino has served as interim dean for the School of Arts and Sciences here at Iona College for the past year. She is also a member of the faculty here at Iona since 2002. Prior to becoming interim dean, Dr. Zaino was director of the college's honors program and also served 2 terms as the chairman of the political science department. It is an honor to welcome Dr. Zaino to the program.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Great. You earned, just want to start kind of with your background a little bit, both a bachelor's and master's degree in the political science and public opinion polling. I know that's very dear to you.
Yeah.
At the University of Connecticut in Storrs. Why did you choose public opinion polling? Because that actually fascinated me when I saw that you picked polling.
It was interesting. I was a student and I was in the honors program at the University of Connecticut in Storrs, my alma mater that I love, and I was there and they had a very active political polling organization, which is really interesting because part of that is part of a larger economic picture. So I think it's one of the questions that voters, especially young people, should be asking. And then those of us, I have kids and I have a son in high school and I have a son who's in he's in elementary school. They're going to be going to college soon, and you know, sooner than I think I can afford. So you know, I should be asking that question. You know, how can we make this system better? How can we make sure our kids are educated and that education doesn't, you know, utilize all your resources as a family or as an individual? And the government should be thinking about answers, but there's no easy answer to those questions, as we know if you look at the economy.
Well, you answered my next
question.
No, that's good, because next I want to know if you support President Obama's proposed student loan program.
I do support his student loan program. I think one thing that President Obama has done very well, and he should, because in 2008 he enjoyed a lot of support from college students. I was here during 2008 and I remember the excitement on campus. And I know there's a lot of excitement on the other side for John McCain, or you know, this time around for, you know, Governor Romney.
Yes.
But I remember specifically 2008, President Obama, after the election, his inauguration, we had a big party on campus. And that was true across colleges and universities across the country. He had focused a lot of energy speaking to young people, and they supported him for the most part. And I think there's still a lot of support for him, in part because he has tried to work very hard on education.
Do you think it's less so
I think
than
there
it
is,
was 4 years ago with students?
I think there is. I think the turnout will be far less among students. And I think that's natural, though, because he's an incumbent. And you now have a record that you have to defend. People aren't as excited as they may have been.
Right.
That said, back to his education policy, I think the work that he and Arne Duncan have done in education globally, I think, you know, not just college education, but education across the board, I think it's probably should be one of his proudest accomplishments. I don't think he's talked about it enough. I think it should be shared more, and I think there's more he could do in the next 4 years should he become president again.
Right, and the only memory I really have of it is when that student asked the question at the town hall debate. You know, because it really isn't brought up as much as it should be, and it's a big problem.
It's not talked about. I mean, issues that are relevant to young people, obviously jobs, obviously the economy, obviously some social issues, are talked about an awful lot, but specific issues about education, college education, are addressed kind of more peripherally than they should be in this election, and that's something the candidates do. We have to be honest, because young people usually don't get out to vote as much as the old people. And so who do they talk to more? They talk to the old people who get out. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Those issues get a lot of attention because the old people will get out and vote. And that's always been something that we've worked on. People have to get out and vote.
There are so many states now that have polling taking place right now. You can vote now prior to the election. So in case you can't do it on election day, get out and do it now.
Early voting. And one thing people, and I'm sorry because I don't want to take your question, but one thing young people really should think about is getting polling places on campuses. And I know this is something we used to have and we don't have now, but it takes a long time to do, but should be worked on. And also making voting easier for people who are quote unquote institutionalized and not in jail or something, but people at college campuses are referred to as institutionalized. Voting is not easy for young people for that reason, and that is not right.
But that's a great suggestion, bringing back polling on campus.
It's something that we've talked an awful lot about, and my dear colleague, Dr. Mulligan, who's the chair of political science, I know it's something she cares about, and other faculty and students, and it's something that it's hard to do because there's a lot involved, and we started to work on it, and it's something maybe by, you know, could be a goal by, you know, 2016 or even an earlier election to bring a polling place to campus and allow not just students, but anybody who's a member of our broader community to vote on campus.
It'll be great for the local election too.
Would be great.
Yeah, so hopefully we can make that happen.
Yes.
As interim dean, what is your message to the class of 2013? We touched on this prior to the interview, just about looking for a job, or if you have an internship leading you to a job. What's your message to them?
Well, you know, graduation is always very emotional for me when I see all the students, and I haven't been in the classroom since I've been interim dean as much as I always was in the past. So I think that's one of the hardest things about this job is I really miss the classroom. I love working with the students, but graduation is always very emotional because you guys walk by and all of a sudden you're going, and I'm like, you're not ready, you can't go.
Right.
So, you know, most of all, I want to say congratulations and how important it is, that the accomplishment, that what they've done here, and my hope that they take that out, and not just in terms of looking for a job, but in terms of the values that we hope that they've gained from their work here and from the faculty and from their relationships with students and staff and administrators. You know, I know one of the things I think is so incredible about Iona is the fact that I think about 3/4 of our students do service of some kind when we're here, and I hope those kinds of things are the things they take out and remember. I mean, what the Christian Brothers really teach in terms of, you know, their future and individually in terms of pursuing work. I think they have to think about how difficult it is for people today. Don't get discouraged, but I think making relationships, whether it's through internships, through people that they know, through faculty, building relationships, I think, can be one of the best ways to find a job and a career. Going back to school for graduate school, I can't say it enough. How fun! Everybody should do it.
Yes.
And you know, and also, you know, not giving up. It's a really tough time. Since 2008, young people graduating from college have had a tough time, but they have so much of a better shot having completed their degree and having come out with the values that they have, the relationships they've formed. I hope they use our alumni network. We have fabulous alums that want to help young people, that want to help good young people, and I hope that they take advantage of that. And the faculty, I mean, all of my colleagues, my dear colleagues on the faculty, they want nothing more than to support the students coming out. So anything, you know, I know I think the
majority of students do feel that.
I hope so, because I think that is not, I have to say, I've been in a lot of colleges and wonderful places. That is not always the case. No. We have a really nice relationship between faculty and students and staff that I think makes it a special place.
Right, and so hopefully they will take that with them as they go on their way. Final question, and
we're almost done?
Yes, this is it.
This is it.
That's
okay.
How fast it goes, just like the 4 years. This is a huge election.
Yeah.
So, and you said you weren't good at making the predictions.
I'm terrible at it. I am terrible. I predicted Hillary Clinton would win New Hampshire in 2000. I'll get you
Wow.
question. Oh yeah, no. Go ahead.
But we're far along now. You know, we're coming down, and I know the polling is close. But if you had to pick a candidate that you think will either be reelected or elected, who do you feel will be?
I will say, based on the polling, I would still narrowly predict President Obama will be reelected. Also, the machine he's got on the ground and the early voting, which I'm so glad you mentioned, that has been going on.
Right.
And in the swing states where they need the people, I think he will still squeak it out, but I think it's going to be close. And our former visitor to campus, Dick Morris, has predicted that Mitt Romney, Governor Romney, is going to win by 4 to 8 points. Nobody is predicting this, by the way, except for Dick Morris. But he was on campus, I think, before you were here. Very interesting pollster. And he's saying Romney by 8 points. So
8 points.
It's
wow.
Crazy, right? Crazy talk. I think
maybe
it'll
in the
be Obama
after the
by
first
a narrow.
debate, but I think now it's definitely those numbers just
Yeah.
keep changing.
Yeah.
And the women vote is important, of course,
That's
and
right.
of course the student vote.
The student vote. So
yes,
get out
that's
to
what
vote.
we're focusing on.
Yeah.
Dr. Zano, it was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
you
It
for
was so
being with
fun.
us.
Thank you for having me.
And after a quick break, we'll be right back with our political roundtable.
Hi, Iona. Pete DiDonato here from the class of '96. Tune into the Rock of Ages Radio Hour, coming to WICR this fall. It's a jam-packed show with nothing but rock from the '80s, with groups like Van Halen honoring the rock legends on WICR.
Welcome back to Critical Issue. I'm Richard Giacovas. We're back, and now it's time to dig deep, guys. You ready? Let's get into it. Starting off, we're going to go right into this presidential campaign. And the single most important issue is fixing the economy. And that seems to be on everyone's minds in this election. And it seems to be at a standstill. No major change. Unemployment still at 8.5%. Let me start with you, CJ.
Sure.
Why do you think we're not seeing any dynamic change right now?
I think the biggest reason why we're not seeing a change in the economy is because we have a president and we have mostly a Congress that is not endorsing policies that are necessary to make businesses feel comfortable, to hire people again, to start investing heavily into projects and into new innovations and whatnot for their businesses. And until we get businesses comfortable to hire people again and to say that this is an economy where we can really flourish in, we're not going to see a change. And that's what we need to start
blame it
doing.
on the current administration?
I do for the most part, because we've been seeing big government policies that in the past have not worked. They're not working today. We've seen them fail, and we're still doing the same exact thing. So I would blame the current administration, and I would say if you match this administration up to who we have running, Governor Romney and Congressman Ryan, they have ideas that will get businesses comfortable to hire again, to invest again, and to secure America's future for economic prosperity.
Okay, and you guys could weigh in on that if you'd like.
Well, as far as the economic policies that have been proposed for both candidates, you haven't really heard much specifics because they obviously, in campaigning, they don't want to get into it. But there's an interesting couple articles that I've been reading recently. I don't know if you guys are aware of what's going on in Europe with the majority of the countries having some sort of debt crisis. One of the countries, though, has emerged in a way that is very unique. It's Iceland. And what they did that is different from everybody else in the world who's been suffering through economic hardship in the global recession is when their banks started to go under, they let them go. They let the banks take responsibility for their reckless trading, and they were able to take the money that we had used over nearly $1 trillion, I believe. I know 800 billion was the initial one, and then there's been little bits after that. That money was instead given to people because in order for an economy to work, you need consumers who are purchasing things. That's the purpose. If you just give money back to an institution like a financial giant bank that essentially does nothing, it doesn't produce anything that people consume necessarily. When you have something like that, it just continues to perpetuate the problem. Iceland didn't do that. Iceland let their banks fail and let their banks have to earn their way back, which has been allowing them to nearly wipe out their unemployment and work towards, reestablishing their economy. They're probably one of the most stable countries in Europe right now.
Well, coming back to the United States, 12.5 million Americans currently unemployed. Kenny, how's this going to affect the election?
Well, going off basically what Brian said, in the middle of campaigns, politicians and candidates aren't really going to give anything. They're going to give all politics, no policies. And that's what we've seen throughout the conventions, throughout the wait between the convention and the first debate. This is just a dry spell of nothing and just campaigning. Politicians are going to go to states, they're going to say what they need to say in that state to get the swing voter, and then they're going to leave and go to a different state. And that's happened since 1776, and it will continue to happen until we basically fix our democracy, because we all know that's broken. But really, nothing we can see in the foreseeable future is going to change the economy until after the election, because nobody's going to ruin their candidacy by making a suggestion early on and having nobody respond well to it and then lose their supporters. So you're going to see a lot of politics in the near future, and you're not going to see a lot of policy, and that's just how it is.
Okay. I would argue, however, though, that as much as you two are absolutely right, that we are not seeing big details into what are these two guys proposing for this country, I would argue that we do know that these are two very different men that come from two very different parties with two very different sets of ideas and beliefs. And I would say, although that's not really enough to actually fully elect and endorse someone, it's enough to say, hey, listen, this person is endorsing these ideas, basically, and this person is endorsing these.
I would agree to that to a certain extent, though. I mean, the economy is one of the most pressing issues in this country to this date, but we need to remember that as President of the United States, you're not just worrying about the economy.
Of course.
You have so many other things going on, education, foreign policy, whatnot, anything you can think of the president has to do, and it's just, you're not going to see those ideas. You're not going to see the main ideas.
With either candidate?
I mean, you've seen them out of Barack Obama, because he's been in office for 4 years. You haven't seen them out of Mitt Romney.
Right.
Because who knows?
Well, I think the biggest problem is, as you did mention, the economy has been number one, and then if you go down the list, it's jobs, and then the next one's deficit.
Right.
So
Brian
it's
just
like,
wants to get one thought, and then we have to move on.
Sure, go ahead.
Brian, I see you.
As far as the political parties, the two candidates running for office, and their difference in fixing the economy, if you really boil it down, there is absolutely no difference, because essentially a politician in today's day and age is paid to support certain ideas. They're given funds, contributions, especially now with Citizens United and super PACs, which means that people can contribute unlimited amounts of funds with the condition that they support the ideas. Essentially, they will claim one thing, but when it comes down to it, the politicians in America support whoever pays them the most, essentially creating the ideas. The dichotomy in the political agenda is different on mainly social issues, most of which at this point in our development as human beings we should no longer be arguing about. We should have some answers to. We should dig deep into those things. But I don't see much economic difference when it comes down to what their policies actually are.
Right. Okay. Well, we're going to move on to an issue that's been pretty prominent over the last couple of months. Voter suppression becoming a major issue here in the United States. We're coming to the point that there are proposed laws that say a person must show a photo identification in order to vote. This will be causing Americans possibly not being able to exercise their right to vote, and one of the states where this is pretty prominent is Pennsylvania. And that Supreme Court is saying they need more time to look over the ID law. What do you guys think?
It's a very touchy subject, because there are some American citizens who have full citizenship who don't have photo ID.
A good number of them.
What?
A good number, especially in older Americans.
I mean, you lose it. I mean, let's be honest. I've lost my driver's license a couple of times, and I've had to pay to get a new one.
Well,
it doesn't come.
You use your passport then.
Well, exactly. I don't have one.
Some people don't have that, though. I had a friend of mine who didn't have a photo identification until she was 20 years old.
I don't have a passport. I only have my driver's license, and when I lose it, I have to wait for the DMV, which, the DMV. But, I mean, that's a different point. We'll get into that in the next episode. But it's a touchy subject, but I mean, how else do you regulate who votes? I mean, you could say, prove to me that you're an American citizen. How do I prove that to you if I don't have photo ID? It's a touchy subject. I mean, I agree with it, because I don't feel that non-American citizens should vote in a presidential election for American citizens. But again, it's touchy, and you really can't just decipher who can vote based on photo ID, because then I wouldn't be able to vote had I lost my driver's license.
I don't think it's an issue, and I don't think, again, I think it's somewhat of relatively common sense of an idea to say, hey, you're voting in this country, you need your photo ID. In these proposed laws, the folks at the voter booths will go with you and go and get your photo ID with you if you need it provided to you. In addition, you need photo ID to drive, to go on a plane, to buy cigarettes. How are we not going to ask for
But
that?
not everyone does those things.
Exactly. That limits you. If you don't have the economic means to do such things, if you can't buy a car, why would you ever get a driver's license? I just find it interesting that we are now in 2012. We have a democracy that's supposed to be over 200 years old, and now we're worried about people showing their IDs at voting booths. If you look into the history of this country, there's been voter fraud throughout it. But what ends up happening is there's enough, it's a smaller number with those kind of things. They've looked at, if you look at the records of voting fraud, it's not that it doesn't happen, but specifically with people going without identification is not so much of an issue. There was some article I read with the last election that there were people who were registered as dead who voted somehow. So
this would probably cut that down, I would assume. I just think because it's becoming increasingly a big issue in a lot of states, and that's why obviously these proposed pieces of legislation are coming through, is that something needs to be done about verifying your identity in this country.
Just looking at the other side of that law, looking at the positive of, you know, asking that. You look back at the election in 2000, when in Florida they had lists printed out of convicted felons who are not allowed to vote, and they matched names who were close. So say there was a Michael B. Johnson, and there was somebody else named Michael B. Johnson, but his middle name was Ben. He wouldn't be allowed to vote because he's on the list of convicted felon. And showing photo ID would prevent that, because that would be a way to know, okay, this isn't the first Michael B. Johnson, this is a different Michael B. Johnson. So they had names that they weren't allowing to vote because they were convicted felons, who, one guy who wasn't allowed to vote was a pastor.
but how does that even stop the fraud? How many people who go to this college have a fake ID? Producing a fake identification card is not an impossible thing to do. In this day and age, it's not terribly difficult.
Hasn't been perfected yet. Could these laws, Brian, affect Mitt Romney and hurt President Obama? Do you think, if they pass?
It certainly could, because the Democrats have always had more favor with people who earn less income, because they're usually supporters of larger government welfare programs and supporting certain citizens. But essentially, the confusion I have is with this is, yes, I believe it would hurt Barack Obama, but not necessarily. I think Mitt Romney's doing enough on his own to hurt his own campaign that this is not really going to affect him.
You're taking us right into our next segment.
Sounds good.
Which is the race for 2012. And Bill Maher stated on his show that Mitt Romney has lost the election. You already said it. Based on political polls, Bill Maher said that Mitt Romney's lost the election. Do you like Bill Maher?
I enjoy Bill Maher. I don't agree with everything he says, but I enjoy a lot of the things he says, and I also enjoy that he is willing to say things that other people aren't.
Mm-hmm. Do you agree with that statement?
Yes.
That he said Mitt Romney
I believe
lost?
Mitt Romney has been losing, and he just keeps on digging his hole deeper and deeper. He's not connected with the average American citizen. He doesn't have really support for the middle class because his profession was designed, the things that he did at Bain Capital were designed to, he's a numbers guy. He looks at numbers, but that's not what a president should do. He's also concerned for protecting his citizens. He's also not, his ability to say things that he shouldn't say is just fantastic sometimes, especially with the most recent video that came out. He's constantly trying to defend his words, and he takes things and turns them into attacks when they shouldn't necessarily be. He's also, people don't like him. Most Republicans don't even like him. He doesn't have a lot of support for his party. He's just the best of the worst.
Well, here's what I would say in reaction to that polls don't reflect that. The American people don't reflect that. And incumbent president, excuse me, in September, before the election, should not be neck and neck in Florida, should not be neck and neck in Ohio, should not be, the opponent should not be taking
the
states
neck and
like
neck is
Indiana.
starting to end, though. He's up by 2 in Florida, he's up by 5 in Ohio. It's starting to split. It's starting
Well,
to split.
nationwide,
A week
though,
ago it was even, now it's boom.
Nationwide, though, there was a recent poll right before this video leaked where he was already behind President Obama by, it was a couple of percentage points with a margin of error. But does that mean anything, or
No.
does it?
Polls, as much as they mean something, they don't mean something, because who do you know, who are they polling? Who knows? Myself and CJ were actually looking at a couple polls just a couple nights ago, and we looked at one poll from Ohio that said Mitt Romney was up by 3 points. And we looked at who the pollster was, and it was McLaughlin and Associates. And when you look at that, you're like, who is McLaughlin and Associates? They can't have any bias, right? So you go to their website, and you click on their politics section, and it says, helping your Republican candidates get in office every day. And it's like, okay, maybe don't listen to McLaughlin and Associates anymore.
And you're saying that as a conservative, so you're offering that as a conservative.
As a conservative?
Yes. Are you not?
I am not.
What are you?
I am very much independent.
Okay.
Here's what I would say.
You tend to lean right on this show.
Well, with Rick Perry,
I think.
I mean, I've been a Ron
Rick
Paul
Perry,
supporter for a
remember
very
that?
long time. I do remember that, and I'm very upset about it.
Here's what I would say, just in reaction, and to paint a broader image here, is Mitt Romney not only has the McCain map from 2008, which was small, secured, without a doubt, locked up. He is taking states that Obama had at least 5-point margins in compared to McCain. He's already taken 3 states away from Obama in the electoral map. He's making big plays in Florida, Ohio, South Carolina, Virginia. He's making big plays in Colorado, Nevada. There's chances that he could win New Hampshire, Michigan, and even take Democrat Wisconsin.
Now,
these states are up for grabs. These states are in no way, shape, or form in the Obama category, and this election is far from over. And if you think for 2 seconds that Obama's going to sweep this map, you've got another thing coming on November 6th.
He's not going to sweep this
he's
map,
not going to sweep the map.
He's certainly going to get a second term.
This is where I agree
Calling
with
it
Bill
now.
Maher's statements. I don't normally like Bill Maher. I do laugh at what he says because it is funny sometimes. But other than that, he's a little arrogant. We're not going to get into a debate about Bill Maher.
Yeah, I know.
But anyway, I think I do agree with what he said that this election is over. I don't think it's going to be a Barack Obama 363 to John McCain 171. That's not in the cards at all. This is going to be a close race, but it's not going to be close enough. The thing is, those states that CJ just mentioned are so opposite from each other. You have Colorado, Nevada, Iowa, Michigan, Wisconsin, all in the mid-northwest area. And then you have Florida, Ohio, Virginia, North and South Carolina. That's 10 states. They're on different sides of the map. Mitt Romney needs to spend $1 billion on the east side of the map,
Which he has.
to win. He does, but he's got to spend $1 billion here to win those 5 states, and he's got to spend $1 billion there to win those 5 states. He can't sweep those states. It's physically impossible for Mitt Romney to spend time campaigning in Florida, North, South Carolina, Virginia, and Ohio.
So you don't think he'll defeat the president?
Mitt Romney can win this. It's an uphill battle. I agree with you guys fully on that for Mitt Romney. If he can get the Southeast that went for Obama, 1 state over in the West, and 1 state in the Mid-North, it's Mitt Romney's election. It's hard. It's not easy by any means, but it's winnable.
I think off the states that we just mentioned, I think we need to scratch Michigan. He's up by 7 points. I think you need to call Michigan a loss. I think you need to make that blue, color it in with colored pencils. Blue is Michigan.
This will all be on tape.
Sure. And I would probably also agree with you on a state like New Hampshire, where Mitt's made big plays, and he's actually spent a decent amount there. But if you think you're going to discount democratically blue Wisconsin or Iowa or Colorado.
The thing about this is he's got to win both Ohio and Florida. He's got to win both of them.
Yes, he does.
And he's got to win Virginia.
All right, we can get into all those states as we get closer. But just if you're an independent, which debate or which convention was better, the RNC or the DNC?
DNC.
Was it a better convention?
Without even a choice. It was DNC, none of the above, or RNC. And it was, the RNC was good, don't get me wrong. It didn't compare.
Clint Eastwood?
It didn't compare. I didn't even watch that.
That was the best of it.
I didn't even watch it. I watched Ann Romney
awkward.
for about 7 minutes, and I said, wow, she looks mean. And I turned it off. And I watched Paul Ryan, and I said, wow, he looks mean.
Okay.
And I turned it off.
And full of fallacies. A lot of people did fact-checking on Paul Ryan's speech at the convention.
That didn't go very well for Paul.
Full of things that he was either stretching the truth or more so blatant lies. Paul Ryan is a person, he's a politician, so of course he's not going to give us any sort of truth. But as far as just the basic purpose of a convention and it being televised, excuse me, is for entertainment, because our politics
true.
are entertainment. And if you are looking for the showman, it is the Democrats. They had Bill Clinton, who had a fantastic speech.
That was a very good speech.
And Barack Obama himself can rouse people in a way that Mitt
they're
Romney
both excellent
never
speakers.
could.
And let's not forget that Michelle Obama's speech was the most watched out of anybody's in both the
Can I
conventions.
tell you something, though?
Well, she's
I
more
think
well-liked than her husband, so.
Well,
It
doesn't
that's
hurt.
true. The bigger dialogue that we should be having here, though, is how the value of conventions have decreased by so much in terms of affecting American
Well, they're
people.
televised. That's where it gets...
True, but the problem is, you look at Obama's speech, the two big ones, Obama's acceptance speech and Romney's. Those were the two lowest rated speeches, I think, in modern political
Because
history.
it's not fun
at
to
a
listen
conventions.
to. And that's the problem with putting it on television, putting something like that out for...
Maybe people are just getting tired of the
I
same
would
rhetoric,
agree.
you know.
Well,
and
it's
And
all-
keep in mind, these are
happens
publicly
over here.
funded by taxpayer dollars.
which
Right.
doesn't make me happy.
Okay, well, there is going to be so much to talk about, and we will be talking about it week by week. So we thank you. This was a great panel, and you'll hear more arguing as we get closer to the election, I am sure. So thanks for joining us here on our first episode of Season 3. Our season premiere went very well. I'm Richard Giacovas, and for all of us here at Critical Issue, good night. Or good